Out there, you get like a...
So I'm not here to present a paper. I actually have the benefit of just telling you guys a story. I got presented this about 2 years ago by Texas Parks and Wildlife. A couple gentlemen came to us. There was a gentleman calling Texas Parks and Wildlife saying he's overrun with copperheads. They're all over his property. He doesn't know what to do. So snake stories in Texas have sort of been like fish stories everywhere else. You never really know what to believe. You never know how many there are, but sort of turned out that he started sending pictures of dead snakes to Texas Parks and Wildlife. So Andy gave me a call. He said, hey, Chris, can you go down there, take a look at things, see what you can find out, see if you can just help this guy out. I'm a herper by trade. It's what I do. I remove snakes for a living. So we went down to try to figure some things out. As you can see, we're all the way down in this lower section down here. Now, when we first went down there, he had told us that was a whole bunch of, there was brush around, there was chickens, there was all that kind of stuff. All right, it's not a big deal. It's very easy to identify at that point. Get rid of the chickens, get rid of the excess food, get rid of the snakes. Not a big problem. This all happened right before International Herpetological Symposium in 2013 in New Orleans. Now, if the amount of snakes were there that we expected might actually be there, we were a little concerned because he said he was getting to 10 to 20 to 30 a night. Now, if I'm finding that many snakes, I can't take in that many snakes. I'm not like a ball python breeder. I cannot have these racks of all these animals and deal with this type of situation. So what am I going to do with these animals? I like these types of events. These types of events are very, very important for people like me. It gave me a chance to meet up with people like Kristen Wiley, Doug Hodel, and a lot of these types of people. We found out that copperheads were being used for breast cancer research. They needed them through the Kentucky Reptile Zoo, and they didn't have enough of them. We said, okay, well that'll work out. But we hadn't been to the site yet. That got delayed by a little bit of time, so we finally headed down there. Now, when I'm talking about copperheads, we're not dealing with Trans-Pecos or the Northerns. We're dealing with the southern copperheads here. Little Hershey kiss patterns on the side, vertical pupils, pits. Now, I know most people in this room are much more educated, but a lot of times I have to give this to the general public. One thing I would like to point out, this right here is why we don't tell people to identify by vertical pupils. That thing is almost wide open. If you're close enough to see that, you are way too close to a fence. So, I live all the way up here in Katy, which is why my business is Katy Snakes. I'm right west of Houston. Where the snakes were located, okay, I'm also not a computer guy, so some of these are going to be lined up, but this doesn't really matter long term. But all of our processes, we have to drive about an hour and a half down here to the swamplands of Victoria County. That wasn't too shocking. Copperheads are found down there generally. It wasn't a real big deal, but all of this has been done out of volunteer situations. Nobody's getting degrees out of this. Nobody's getting paid for any of these situations. This is all done out of the goodness of these people's hearts, just trying to help this gentleman out. This is what I saw when I looked him up on Google Maps. I was like, okay, well, yeah, he's going to have snakes. Look at all this. His property is right there, this little tiny section. This is all oil company property back here. There's a huge pipeline that runs underneath all this, so it's partially conserved right now, but as of right now, that can't be utilized. There's nobody around it, but there are neighbors, and these neighbors over on these other sides, if you check with them, they weren't seeing anything. As you can see, everybody said, well, look, there's water. Of course there's going to be snakes there. Okay, water's there, chicken's there. These are easy things to identify. But when we got there, we found out it wasn't a real big situation. It's actually a beautiful piece of property. It's very, very well maintained. Now, one of the things that he kept telling all of us is he's catching all of these snakes in less than 100 meters of land. I mean, 100 meters. I mean, not much further. I mean, this little bit of an area. He's telling us that's where he's catching all these snakes. We're going, okay, it seems a little weird. We were very prepared to go all the way in to this whole section. Now, if I couldn't find snakes, I was ready to go into it. We wanted to try to help this guy out and at least shut this situation down. Try to prove this guy was crazy, catch a couple snakes for him, get the hell out of it. But no, so we go down there and I'm going, I do not want to go through this. If you don't know enough about this type of area, everything in there bites, burns, and stinks. There's branches, there's thorns, there's everything else. He said, no, we don't have to worry about that. We're going to be right in here. He's got a nice fence line, no debris, no nothing. This is the property right here. This land right here is what he's been talking about. We went, okay, we get there, I'm expecting to be stepping on snakes at this point. Nothing. Nothing there. We're going, okay. So we're going to walk around, we're going to film a little bit, take a few pictures. He says this only happens at night. We didn't see any problems, so we were all pretty excited. Now this fence line right here, this brush line is what leads out into those woods. In my backpack, I had flares, I had radios, I had glow sticks, I had everything else to make sure that we were going to be very, very safe to go out into this situation. And okay, that's not what we were going to need to do. The guy kept laughing at us the whole time. And this is Mr. Lee Hubbard right here. He's in his Crocs, his shorts, he's out there just wandering around. I don't know about that. So, we go out there and we start showing us around the property. And I still love this, because the guy got all this tin weight out here. And we're like, does this guy know what he's doing? He's actually making the snakes come to his property. We find out that his family was turning this into a wacky day type situation. And if you've ever seen The Simpsons, he'd have all of his relatives come over there with golf clubs and stuff, and they'd actually go and they'd hope that the Copperheads would actually go underneath all this tin so they could kill him easy. So they'd go around and they'd just start mutilating snakes for their fun family events. Okay, a huge snake guy. That was not sitting very well with me when this started happening. He takes us to this first little pile. He says, okay, well, let's get some filming. We'll do these types of things. So we pick up this patch of wire right here. Immediately we find our first snake. It was within 2 minutes of walking out there. Now, if anybody's good, here's a little bit of practice for you. Ooh. Oh, no, he's right there. Get a little size. Now, one thing we noticed right away about this size snake, it was actually a very, very small one. We started calling this a juvenile. We were going to try to keep track of what we were finding by sizes, things like that. I realized I'm not an academic. We actually don't know what pieces of information we need to pick up while we're there. But we're going to try to get as much data as we can. So the first snake we find, we love it. It's an adorable little snake. It was cute to me. It was the only one we ever found that had a little arrowhead pattern on the back of it, and it was completely missing the green tail. So we found out later, this is still Mr. Hubbard's screensaver. So it's been pretty neat to find somebody that was just killing as many snakes, and now this is still a screensaver picture. So we go back in, we sit around for a while. He goes, no, now's not the time. So we played with the snake for a while. We took some pictures of it. We documented it. We measured it. He goes, okay, now's the time. So we go out there. It's about 8:30 at night. You can hear the cicadas are going all over the place. We walk out there, and they're everywhere. About every 6 feet, we start finding snakes. It wasn't, now unfortunately, we've given this talk a couple times now. The videos never play, but the video is very important. If anybody wants it, I'll be happy to share it with you later. It's awesome because sometimes we're filming one of these snakes and somebody will go, hey, I heard something, turn around, oh, crap, there's one right there. They're really right here, right around me. There'd be 3 or 4 right in this little standing area. But as you can see, beautiful snakes, there's the Hershey kiss pattern that stands out in those backgrounds. We're able to find quite a few of them right away. Our ideas were we're going to take a GPS, that would give us a data plot point, that would give us an actual plot. We also would use our iPhones. By using our iPhones, we turned on our GPS. Well, now we have 2 things of GPS right then. We have a photo of the snake, and we're going to remove every single snake. Why we're removing every snake? We wanted to see how many we're actually doing. And I made a deal with Mr. Hubbard. If I came down there and I started finding snakes, I'd get them off his property. He didn't have to keep killing them. But this took forever because we were finding so many snakes. So we screwed up a bunch of times. We had missed plot points. We had all these other problems. But we wanted to make sure we recorded as much data as humanly possible, just to make sure that it was accurate and we could prove whether this guy was nuts or not. We started finding out right away why they were there. Now, I didn't know about Mr. Jerry Salmon ahead of time. I didn't know about Dr. Harry Green. I didn't know about those guys before I got down there. Well, it's already been documented these snakes feed on cicadas. In my world, we feed copperheads frozen thawed mice. I mean, that's usually how we do it. If you're out in the wild, they feed on mice. That's what we thought. Nah, there were cicadas all over the place. Because he had cleared out that large piece of grass underneath there, the cicadas were coming out of the ground, climbing over the trees, going up, shedding the exoskeleton, and taking off. Well, cicadas had figured out to go out here into this property. There's one of them. Now, they call them locusts down there. I'll get back to that in a second. But they're all called locusts. And I was trying to figure out how these snakes are eating on locusts. This is a cicada. You guys have a 1-year cicada down in Texas. Up north in Illinois where I'm at, we have 17-year ones. It was very strange for me to be thinking that these snakes are coming out there feeding on cicadas every year, once every 17 years. No, they're out all the time. These are their religions. Now, this was sort of pretty crazy, because as soon as we got out there, we didn't know why the snakes were there. They're feeding on the cicadas left and right. We actually got filming on them, we got footage of them. It was really neat to actually watch the process happen. We started thinking, we knew why we were there. We knew that we could actually take these snakes and use them for other things. We started noticing none of these snakes were actually envenomating any of the cicadas. They weren't coming up, they weren't like attacking them, sinking their fangs in. No, they were just picking them up and eating them like popcorn. We started realizing, well, maybe these snakes don't have as toxic of a venom. Maybe this is something that could actually be used in the medical field. Well, there is as things started. Okay, so we started collecting all these things. This is our catch bucket. I mean, we have multiple catch buckets going. We have a holding bin. We have all these different nice things. It was a little ridiculous. And this is still a freaking nut. The most snakes they ever killed in one snake was 16 snakes. So we get there, and in the first hour, we catch 17. So we're pretty proud of ourselves. They're like, yeah, that's why I got herpers to do these types of things, you know. Bring us out here, you know, show you hillbillies how to do it. But that didn't last very long, because there's the end of the night. We had 33 snakes in the first night. So I didn't really know what to do. I talked to Miss Kristen Wiley. I was all excited. I knew that I got to send a lot of these animals to her, and we could actually help move some of these things forward. But of course, the first thing I do is tell people to get out. Now, what we thought was that we didn't have any adults here. We thought we had a lot of juveniles, and that the adults were probably hiding out in the weeds, and actually, you know, maybe they were staying out of the way. Maybe the babies were coming out feeding on an easy food source. We found out very, very quickly that that's not the case. All of those snakes that were in that bin, all the snakes, we've never found a snake that are over 22 inches long. At 14 inches long, they're dumping babies left and right. So that was pretty neat in the first place. The other thing we found was the baby snakes, none of them have green tails. Now, if you've studied some of the ecology of these snakes over time, most of them have caudal lure. They use caudal luring, they wiggle their tails around, and that's what draws food to them. Well, I don't think snakes are supposed to be smart enough or have the genetic idea that they don't need to use that anymore. They're evolving possibly quicker. I don't know. I'm not going to have to put it in. You guys are, so figure these things out. But for all of our GPS points, we were able to start doing a layout. We were able to start getting an idea that there was a pattern here. Now, underneath this canopy right here is that open area. This is the fence line. We found noticeable patterns. They're here, and they're here. As we walked back and forth along here, at about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, every single snake was moving north. At about 11:30 at night, every single snake was moving south. As we walked along here, these ones that are over by the 33, by the 31, all of those snakes were because we were over here. As we walked back over here, we started finding snakes further in. If we stayed along that fence line, we were able to pick them up right on that fence line coming out. So we said, okay, we got to get back out there. First night, we catch 33 snakes. I'm going back out there 6 days later because they're not having any snakes. We put a dent in it, we've made a difference. I was wrong. I was really wrong. We went out there and started doing this all over again. They were all over the place again. So all of a sudden we're finding out that there's a larger population, we don't know what to do with this. Now, this is a lightened version of what it looks like while we're out there. Yeah, that's more like what it looks like. People are finding snakes all over the place. We're walking around, we're trying not to get bit. There's spider webs, there's hogs, there's owls, there's all sorts of crap out here that's trying to attack. It's awful. And the mosquitoes and the heat. Oh. Northern Illinois, I'm not thinking this down here. But it was pretty neat. First time we went out there, I sat right in that tree line. I stood right here at 8:30 at night. We said, okay, there's a lot of snakes that have passed this tree line, this spot right here. So I stood there with a little video camera and I waited for an hour getting bit by mosquitoes in one spot. First snake comes out at 8:30, the next snake not 3 minutes later right behind him. They are following each other. There is some type of central situation going on, but I don't know why and I don't know how. We're also seeing little babies. Babies that are 8 inches long to 6 inches long are actually following the adults right out in this area. They're too small to eat the cicadas. So I don't know why they're doing that, but I got a whole room of full people that didn't figure that out for me. So, this is why we did it. Back in 1998, Markham came out with a paper that said that there was a 60 to 70% destruction of the breast cancer tumor by using a carcinogen called contortrostatin out of copperhead proteins. That alone is a good enough reason to stop killing copperheads. Now that's Texas. Good snake's a dead snake. That doesn't work with me. There's better uses for these animals. You can leave them alone, you can walk away, avoid that type of stuff. But if you can get people to start understanding that there's a better purpose for them, that's what we started believing. The 90% reduction in the metastasis, that was huge to us. That means it doesn't travel to any other tissue around that area. That was big. What we didn't know was we couldn't go out there on the Friday night we wanted to. He was actually burying his aunt on Friday who had just died from breast cancer. Once this happened, when we went out there on Saturday, changed the whole thing. He became a snake lover. He started going crazy for these things. He's saving every one of them. And we now have a 6'3" redneck defending copperheads out in the middle of this field. And it's awesome because it was really neat because we're watching him on his Facebook post and there's all these people that are friends of his that are growing up around him saying, oh, you should be killing all those snakes. He's going, no, 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 here's why. All of a sudden we've got somebody else that's talking about it, who isn't into snakes, who isn't into science. He's actually telling all these people and they're going nuts for him. They're eating up. Now if you try to look up snakes, you ain't gonna find this picture. But it frustrates the heck out of me because everything is pink these days. The NFL's pink, all this other stuff. I want people wearing copper. I believe people can do it. I think we can start moving some of this stuff forward. This is another project we started with my friend over at Repterra. We started pushing this stuff, just trying to get it out to the public during October. Get people those ideas out there that we can actually do something for these animals. So, Miss Wiley comes to town. Now, Miss Wiley didn't come down when we needed her to because her husband got bit by a snake again. It always happens with those venom guys. But we wanted to get down there in about August, and that didn't happen. But what Mr. Hubbard had told us was these snakes only come out from June to September. She gets down there about the first week of September, and I'm freaking out already. We'd had rain come through, he had gone through, and because she was coming in from Kentucky, he went through and mowed down the whole property of all the grass and stuff like that. He also sprayed the whole property with chemicals to actually knock down all the mosquitoes for us, too. The hogs came through, the temperature changed, it was rain, I was like, oh my God, she just came from Kentucky. We were still going to be giving her all the animals that we'd already caught, but we wanted her to show this property because it was so neat. Now, this was only our third trip out there. Now, during this entire time, we've never seen another species except for one cottonmouth during this entire time. And that cottonmouth was sitting right in an area where we had found a ton of copperheads, and we think that snake was actually feeding on those. It was the biggest, meanest cottonmouth I've ever seen. I've still got it. It's a pretty cool snake. Mean as hell. But it was the only thing we ever saw out there. We never saw another species. Immediately, we started finding other snakes, but we weren't finding copperheads. So we're in the first week of September now. We found a little garter snake, which I think you had mentioned. Somebody else was working on that. They hadn't seen them down there for a while. Somebody was doing those at one point.
Yeah, that looks like that could be a Texas garter.
It was one of those, but I know I sent that over to John Classic over at UT. He was all excited about that. I just see a garter snake. He's like, oh my God, it's a garter. And we found Texas brown right away, which was really cool. So we were all excited. We're starting to see some other things, but we weren't finding copperheads. Now, by the end of the night, we did find 5 copperheads. We were able to send her back with some more animals, but this is what we were able to find in 1 year. So this is 3 trips out there. It's about 6 hours. As you can see, there's no noticeable pattern. They're only located in this spot. We hunted everywhere. We hunted across the train tracks. We hunted by this pond. We hunted into these woods on every trail we could find. We've never seen a snake anywhere besides in that one single spot. Now this is at the end of last year. September ends, we don't see any more snakes. They're gone. We had no idea where they had gone. I freaked out a little bit. I was like, well, I guess we did our job, but there's no more snakes. But we had a lot of information and I wanted to get it out to a lot more people. So we stepped up our game a little bit. And I went, all right, I'm going to try to go to biology to Pit Viper and see if anybody's interested in this. So we did a poster presentation, but I couldn't get past the idea that this was going to be an entire waste of time, which was our hypothesis, and that the question was, is this guy crazy? Well, no, he's not crazy, and it wasn't an incredible waste of time because we're actually starting to move some of these things forward. And I actually got to talk to a lot of people that could help me out. Got to speak to Dr. Hibbins over here, and he was talking to me about radio tracking studies. They've done some information. And again, these events are very, very important to actually get people together who have the answers for the other people who don't. So these have been very, very worthwhile for us. We also got to talk to a few people that actually needed some other species. So while we're out there, every single animal we find, if we find other stuff, and it's other things that people need, we'll take the tail samples, we'll put them in the alcohol, we'll do all those things and send them off to people as we need to. We also got a little bit of sponsorship by Animal Equipment by Stoney. He actually stepped up and said, hey, this is a really cool project. I find it very interesting and things and stuff you're doing at school, and they want to actually supply us with the radio tracking equipment. The problem is, I've never run radio tracking equipment, and from the frustration that I've heard from, where did he go? Yes. I was going to be gluing these on this year because we didn't want to be doing the surgery and stuff, but now I guess we got to go internal. But this all happened while I was up at Biology the Pit Viper. The snakes hadn't shown up yet, so I was trying to convince all these people, hey, pay attention, this is a pretty neat study we're working on down here. But the snakes hadn't come back yet. Well, that night we got this picture from Mr. Harvard. They showed back up, I mean, on the dot, June 6th, they were there. We don't know if it's the cicadas coming up, we don't know if it's a temperature gradient, we don't know what's going on, but they showed up in droves again. He just walked out to his chicken coop and found 5 of them in 10 minutes. So we started to find them again, all over. Now, because we've seen so many of them at this point, we've started to see a few pattern changes and a few things, and we're saving some of these animals. Not all these animals go to Kentucky Reptile Zoo. We try to hook up the zoos and things like that around the area, because we can show people that there's some pretty ones out there, and we're actually starting to find people who have their favorites. And they're actually seeing these animals not as a vilified creature that they've been forever and ever. We're also starting to find some other stuff. Mr. Hubbard and his father-in-law were out there, and as soon as this turtle got done laying its eggs, they went out and put an entire wire basket over this animal so that nothing could get in there and start eating its little eggs. It was so funny to see these guys he's a huge hunter, and he used to just club snakes. Now they're out there building these little fences and stuff. He's like, we can't wait for the turtles to hatch. So as I said, the problem with all this, as we keep doing these things, we have to store them all. We have to take care of them because we can't be going back and forth to Kentucky Reptile Zoo. We have to take in all of these animals and find something else to do with them. So we bring them in, we label them, we take care of them, we feed them, we water them. At this point, it was getting a little insane.
Can't you just call those red hot morphs and?
Yeah, I think it's probably pitch them for $50 to $100 a piece at this point. Take them out to San Antonio, I'm done. But, and this wasn't for you guys, this was at a different talk. But, you know, I didn't finish school, it happens. I pull my son out of school as often as I can to take him with me on all these different events, because this has opened up a few doors for me, and it's opened some doors for him too, where we can go and see some of this other stuff. We've dropped off animals to the Natural Toxins Research Center down in Kingsville. Some of the things they're going to be doing for us right now, which my animals are still in quarantine, the ones we've given to them this year, but they're going to be doing the LD50 study for us. We think we may have a subspecies here. Now, I don't think that, but about 5 other people smarter than I thought we had that, because the size that they're breeding at and with the difference in the venoms, we may have something special here, but it's in such a small area, this little microclimate, that we don't really know what to do with them yet. I don't have any of those big genetic trees because I don't have a lot to do that kind of stuff. But now, while we're out there, we also do try to collect as many other animals on all these different trips we take, dropping off animals all over the country. These stupid 6 lineatas, I heard about that battle, but trying to figure out what that one was. We just found it out in the cotton field, but we try to turn all these animals over. Every information we pick up, we turn into iNaturalist. I can't use all that information, but I'm a herper, so we kind of get as much information as we can, but I know there's other guys out there who use it. So if you can't, you're a herper, if you like going out in the woods, take a picture of it, submit it to iNaturalist, put it in the Herps project so that it helps move things forward that we might not have anything to do with, but other people find it very important.
Amen.
Except for Connor. Chasing you all year. Here's the problem. We got our first illegitimate bite this year, and it broke my heart. We've been doing real well for a long time. We did almost 2 years. I say there's a big difference between legitimate and illegitimate bites. Nobody has actually stepped on one at this point. When this one happened, it was because we were tracking 3 snakes at the same time. I was running around a little bit. Lee thought he would be a great guy and just pick this one up and help me. And I hear his wife go, "Lee, don't you pick up that snake?" And he goes, "Ah, yeah." Well, he got one fang right in the finger. Now, he's about 6 inches taller than I am and easily outweighs me by about 100 pounds, and it's his property. I ain't making him go anywhere, but I start freaking out because the process that happens with anaphylactic shock happens real fast, and I was afraid that we wouldn't be able to get this guy off the ground fast enough that anything hit him real bad. Usually they don't kill people. There is the possibility. But Dr. Sean Bush, Doug Holdel, a lot more important people than me, they believe in this, we know this, leave them alone. Don't use your hands, don't be picking them up, leave the damn things alone, they can't kill you. So, this is this year so far. We've been doing this all over again. We've been out there. We've been going out to the woods again. We've been collecting snakes. This is my whole summer. This is what we had last year. Okay? Not too bad, 59 snakes. Because of all this, we got a call from a gentleman up in Dallas. We went up there and visited him. Same type of property, faced by woods, caught 19 snakes. Same situation was happening. They're coming through this fence line, they're coming through this fence line. Those ones in the middle were ones we were finding going back and forth. Same type of property also. It was a lot of old growth trees that they had cleared out underneath them. There's a lot of growth over here where the snakes can actually be living, and they're moving back and forth feeding on cicadas. We actually found one of them climbing a tree on this property. We've never seen them on the other property though. But we know it is happening in other places around the country. During this process, we also found out it's happened over in the Davy Crockett County. Same thing. Same feeding process, same time of night, same time of year. It's happening all over the place. It's starting to freak me out a little bit because if people find out about this across the country, it's going to be whack-a-day all over. People are going to go crazy. They're going to start killing these things. We're going to have dead animals all over the place. This is what we've had since IHS in 2013. Now, this is coming up to the point in our talk where things were ended. This was when I was talking out at IHS in California earlier this year. That was the end. That was all we did. From all these things, we've gotten a lot. Don't you like how they do those little plays on the words over and over again? We actually got to go out and we've gotten a little bit of media attention. And it's actually worked out very well. We hid this information for a long time from anybody down in Brazoria County because we didn't want people freaking out. We didn't want people going down there killing the snakes or just basically destroying what we were working with. But the articles that have been coming out, if anybody does get involved with the media, or you have to talk about the snake stories, you guys have recently seen the one about the anaconda that's going on, about this guy who's going to feed himself to one. That's a misuse of media. That's not good. That doesn't look good for any of us, okay? Trust me. But if you hang on to it and you do it correctly, these articles that have been coming out have been great. It has nothing to do with me, but the stories that are getting out there and the information that's getting out there, it's getting people to actually change their opinions a little bit, and it's been great to read. It's also given us a little bit of a soapbox. We're working so hard on this one conservation aspect that we've also been able to push this conservation aspect too. We're trying to get the idea in Texas changed. Okay? They just kill venomous snakes left and right because they don't think there's a purpose for them. Well, we know on the other side of things there is a purpose for them. We keep pushing them. So if you can, look these types of things up. Enjoy as helps. This is what we got this year. Yeah. It's become really frustrating to work on Google Earth with all of these numbers. It's too many of them. This is what we've had since last year, since we went down there the first time Andy sent us down. We've got 171 copperheads. Now that's plus or minus 24 hours. We only go out for about 2.5 hours of hunting a night. There's usually breaks and things. But as you can see, this has never changed. The pattern has never changed or anything else. We have had a few blips. This one got way up here. I know this one because my buddy Curtis didn't catch it on the fence line. We had to chase it all the way into the woods. And this one we know is wrong, but we don't know why. But we do know our scrubs. We don't know what happened with that one. We actually have a photo of it too, and I don't know why it's over there. But this is never changed. As you can see, that pattern has just stayed consistent through this whole thing. We know that between June and September, every single night if you go out there, you can find 20 to 30 copperheads in one night. We cannot keep removing them though. We are filled. We have filled up every venom place. We filled up every zoo. We're taking them to Victoria. We're taking them to San Antonio. We're sending them everywhere we possibly can. We don't have a use for them anymore. We filled up everything that we possibly can. So we've had to decide to do something different. We're going to try this. We're going to try conservation tourism on this property. We don't know what else to do. So what we decided is that we can actually put a dollar sign on every single one of these snakes. If we actually leave them out there, if we consider that there's 20 snakes on this property tonight, we can get 6, 7, 8 people. If we can get 20 people to go out there a year, that actually makes this gentleman a little bit of money. And the public to come out there and photograph something in a migratory situation where they can come and watch this happen, just like the bats in Austin and everywhere else. We're going to be dealing with venomous snakes. So we've been talking about giving people gaiters, sort of like bowling shoes, and going out there and doing those types of things. But we really don't know what else to do with them. So we're just going to invite people to come out there and actually start seeing these animals. Save these animals, look at them in their natural environment. There are guys who work with snakes their whole lives who have never seen a copperhead in the wild. I'm here to tell you, you are more than welcome to come on down and see them. It happens all year long. So as of June, after the beginning of next year, we'll have them out there. So we'll hopefully be able to keep moving things forward. Insurance has been interesting to discuss, but yeah, we're going to keep moving forward. So hopefully this will end up being a very great film. I got thousands of people to thank. There's acknowledgments and stuff like that out there, but you know what? Everybody's had huge parts in it. Doug Holo taught me venom training. He taught me how to work with venomous snakes. It gave me a hell of a lot of confidence to be out there. My buddy Curtis, my friend Malik, they've stood next to me every single time. I've stood up and done the talking. They usually hide in the background, but they've kept my ass from getting bit a dozen times now and make sure that nothing ever happens to me. Kristen Wiley, Ken Fuchs, Andy, the whole Hubbard family, my family for letting me run around and do these things. Tim Cole drives these snakes all over the country and goes and drops them off. A lot of people don't realize how they help. Nathan Wells, I don't know if anybody knows him. He actually sold me a whole bunch of equipment very, very cheaply at a huge discounted rate, and I was actually able to turn those things over to the Hubbard family without a lot of discount to myself, so we can keep moving these projects forward. You might not know how you're helping, but the little bit of information I've gotten from the few people I've talked to, it helps drastically when we keep doing a lot of cool things. So that's my spiel. Hope you enjoyed it, and if anybody's got questions, trust me, I'll keep talking and I'll answer. So, thank you.